My name is Nick Nabosny. I'm the VP of Account Management here at Acumen. And today, as Stephen mentioned, we're going to talk about Sage Intacct's reporting tools and capabilities. So let's do a quick agenda recap here. So I see we do have clients on the line that have Intacct. We have clients on the line that have other Sage products and maybe looking at Intacct, and also some prospects on the line running non-Sage products that are looking at Intacct. So I'm going to start with a very brief overview of what Intacct is. Then we're going to get into the reporting specifics, and we'll talk about the architecture of the data and what are the components that allow us to have this truly world-class report writer. Those are called dimensions and account groups. And then we're going to kind of look at, take a step back and look at chart of accounts, today in some of the more traditional products using segments and things like that. And then also, what could it look like in Sage Intacct using dimensions and account groups, and how can we streamline that, and what is really, in my opinion, a much better way to do it. And then we're going to get into the product. We'll take a look, we'll build a few reports, take a look at them, open them up, and see how they work. And then we will, certainly, as Stephen mentioned, come back for some questions and answers at the end. Now, what is Intacct? Intacct is, in our opinion here at Acumen, probably the best-in-class cloud ERP system. It was acquired by Sage just over 2 years ago. It is a full accounting solution, but it is truly cloud-based, meaning no install, runs on any device with a browser. That can be mobile platform, it can be tablets, it can be laptops, of course, any browser that you need. It is the only product out there that has the certification from the AICPA. You can see kind of over the last 4 years, several of the top IPOs out there have been running Sage Intacct. You can see on the left-hand side that there are customers that have 3,000 plus users processing over 1 million transactions per month. And Intacct now is upwards. It's actually probably closer to 13,000 now, but there are thousands and thousands of customers out there running Sage Intacct. As we mentioned, it is an accounting solution, right? So we're going to focus on the chart of accounts and dimensions and where they fit, and that's in the middle of the accounting solution, as you might expect. No different from some of the other, more traditional accounting packages, the on-premise ones that we have, over the last 15 to 20 years. That is in the middle. That's the backbone of the accounting system, and the cells built around that are the complementary modules, payables, receivables, purchasing, inventory, and Intacct is continuing to build those out. And the black ones on the side, you see that they've added now project accounting and revenue management, full inventory system, time and expense management. And then in addition to those Intacct modules, there's a whole ecosystem of third-party vendors that are writing other applications that fill additional cells that have allowed us to take Intacct into many different vertical markets as well. Things like paying with credit cards and automating ACH-type transactions and enhanced dashboard delivery, bank feeds, direct pulling from your bank. So lots of different things out there. We could spend way more than an hour looking at that, but there are lots of third-party options that fully round out this solution. So, why is a chart of accounts hard to manage? Well, in today's company, companies are very different than they were, 15, 20 years ago when we were working with some organizations. Now with people working from home, with the internet, with voice over IP, with video calling and Skype and Microsoft Teams, we have seen a lot more companies with different locations, different departments, because of the nature of how the employees are working, right? So you may have had that before, and now we've seen that's kind of grown exponentially. Well, now, how do we control that, right? Well, we need to really produce reports to track different locations, different vendors, different projects, classes, customers, line of business, all those types of things. Well, we really always had the need for it, but we're just seeing that need grow and grow and grow. And not only do we need to build those reports, but we're seeing clients and companies wanting to present or provide those reports to the right team members at the right level with just the right amount of detail, right? So I don't need to give, the employees the executive management summary, of course, and I don't need the executive management summary dashboard to have all the same level detail as a regional manager of one department might have, So if I'm a project manager, I only need to see or care about the projects that I'm responsible for. So certainly that's all possible with a current accounting system with kind of, I'll call it the historical chart of accounts, but let's take a step back and look at how we would have to do that, right? Well, here we have an account called equipment, right? And hopefully everyone on the line has some type of equipment in their business, and that could be vehicles, it could be furniture, it could be heavy cranes. We have clients in all kinds of different industries. Lots and lots of them do have some type of equipment, but this is true for any natural account in the system. And if I need to do some reporting, again, for those same segments, I have locations, I have departments, and inside of those departments, I also have projects. Well, I have to create accounts, full accounts for all of those, using all of those segments, the account, the location, the department, and the project, and building all those together, making 75 to 100 plus accounts just for equipment. And that gives me the flexibility to move equipment around. And we've seen clients that do have vehicles that go from department to department and on certain dates, and holy cow, can those reports get very, very confusing if you don't have the right level of detail. And not to mention the huge, massive chart of account that you have to create to allow the flexibility to even try to report on that. So what does a modern kind of GL structure look like, or a GL architecture look like? How do we simplify that? Well, with Sage Intacct, we can truly get it down to just the natural account. And why is that? Because Intacct has a better way. They have something called dimensions. And I like to think of dimensions as really a tag on my business data. And I can turn dimensions on for different types of transactions. So here in my example here, this is an AP bill or an AP invoice, and I have some tags on the bottom where I might say, instead of picking this huge long GL account, I'm going to tag it to the right location. I'm going to tag it to the right department or the right project. So whatever tag I want, I can turn on, set it up as a dimension, and then use it. I can also build rules into those dimensions. So if I pick a particular location, the 3 projects that are in that location are the only ones that show up. The 52 other ones I can't select because I've already selected this location. So there can be dependencies as well in those dimension relationships. Now, out of the box, Intacct comes with 10 predefined dimensions, and they cover the who, what, and where very nicely. And don't be alarmed with the words, and I'll show you that when we look at the demo. For example, we have a lot of clients in hospitality, and we take the locations and we just rename it to be properties because they want to know which specific property it is, not which location. And departments, department could be called branch or division or region, whatever terminology you use in your organization, you can set inside Sage Intacct. But those just do a very good job of covering the who, what, and where. And as I mentioned, you can turn on any dimensions you want and attach them to any transaction that you'd like, including journal entries, including bank transactions, payables, receivables, inventory order entry type thing. So everything now is going to start to get tracked or tagged for that instant reporting that we're going to look at. Now, if I add on to those kind of predefined or out-of-the-box dimensions, I can turn on things like warehouses or projects or contract tracking. If I need another level of that, say for AP to track actuals versus budgets, I can tag that with my projects. And then if for some reason none of those fit, you can add on user-defined dimensions where you can truly create your own. So we've had clients do things like line of business. We've had clients do brand. Some of our hospitality clients will create brand, so I can very easily click on my dashboard and see how are we trending for Marriott versus Hilton if I carry both flags, across our portfolio. So, it's very easy to kind of turn that on and set that up, and then those will just flow through the system. Now, why are dimensions so important? Well, we already talked about, modernizing and kind of shrinking or reducing your chart of accounts. But really, the most important is what we're going to look at in just a little bit is the dimension-driven reporting. Well, the whole reason we do data entry into an accounting system, right, is to get some good information out, right? So I want to type this in and tag it with these dimensions so the right people in my organization get the data they need or the information they need at the right time. And those dimensions can be set up with rules. And I gave an example of that before where, this particular property, if we turn on property, may only have these two divisions because they are not a full service property, and so they don't have this particular department. Or, this location doesn't sell this particular product, so I may not have line of business in this particular branch or location or division. So I can set up rules that way. I can also set up something called structures or dimensional groupings where I might say, okay, the Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, and Miami locations all get grouped together to form a dimension or a location called Florida. And, the Atlanta and Duluth get together and make up Georgia. So then I can have Florida and Georgia together that make up the southeastern dimension or segment of data. So we can also then kind of build them together with dimension groups, and then also something called account groups. Now, Intacct does also have custom fields, and some of our systems that we use today, do have custom fields. And you might say, well, I can do some of that with custom fields, and that's absolutely true. I can set up my long GL account, I can put in my segments that I need, and I can also do some tagging with custom fields, and that is absolutely true. But what I really can't do with that is have those roll to a dashboard instantly. I can't always put security on that or require them or make sure that there's a rule built in that if I select one value for one custom field that it only allows me these two options for this one because of a dimensional relationship. And in my opinion, that's why dimensions are truly a game changer, and that's why they kind of help Intacct and make Intacct have this world-class report writer. Now, the last kind of piece that we're going to look at here, the last, I call it data architecture or say foundation of reports in Intacct, is something called account groups. And I said here, this is the building block for our financial reports. And that's true. I can go in and I'll show you an example of this, and we can make an account group where we're just going to add a range of accounts or just a single account. I can make as many account groups as I'd like and build them and stack them or nest them so that I have, here in my example, cash and cash equivalents are each account group. So I could have a report where I just show those. I might have a report that's called current assets, where that account group has the two others in it, and then assets gets rolled up with current, long-term, and other assets. And you're going to see that that's going to allow me to very, very easily and very quickly build some really nice financial reports where it's going to do a lot of the grouping and summation and totaling for me out of the box. So because I've taken the time to build those account groups. Account groups can have formulas in them, they can do calculations, so they're truly powerful. And what I love about it is I come down to this kind of small level where I can understand I'm going to put cash and cash equivalents together. Okay, that makes up current assets. So I'm not worried so much about building this huge financial statement. I just need to get these groupings right. And then when I come over to my report design tool, it just says, what account groups would you like in there? What level do you want? You want detail, you want summary, do you want these grouped or those grouped? And it's building the report for me. Okay, so enough of the slides. Let's actually go take a look at Sage Intacct. And remember, everyone is on mute, so if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A or the chat. We'll be watching those, and we'll certainly leave time to cover those at the end, okay? So I'm going to switch over here to my Sage Intacct environment. So just a very quick overview, because this may be the first time some people on the line have seen Sage Intacct. So I have logged in here in my web browser. Remember, again, completely cloud-based, nothing to install on my workstation. And I've logged in as my controller, Joanna Drake. And Joanna may want to start with a dashboard, which has some information that's really critical to be, kind of at her fingertips. So she's got some key performance indicators here up at the top, and she's watching our membership dues and how is that revenue trending, and what's happening with G&A, and has a custom one here, sales by square foot for our different divisions or locations, and how are we paying AP off. She might want to see, sales by the different franchises. So she's got some graphs and charts in here. She's got some reports with some spark lines so she can quickly and visually see how things are trending. I have here a P&L. She might want to see a very quick summarized version of the P&L. This one is by property with drill down included. So right from my dashboard, I can start to drill into something. So the reason I wanted to start here is because I love the dashboard capability of Intacct, and if we build these reports and take the time to build them, any of the reports we build can be put onto a dashboard. So I can have it easily visible to the right users at the right time. So there's all kinds of different dashboards that you might build. Different users might look at different bits of information, as you might expect and might hope they can do. And you can populate the dashboard with all types of components like key performance indicators, reports, communication information, charts, boards, action items, all those types of things. So I know this is really a webinar focused on reporting, and we're going to kind of look at reporting in just a moment, but I think this is really kind of the cream of the crop of reporting. So I can very quickly get information I need, and these are just types of reports, in my opinion. The dashboards are just visual ways to get into something. And again, I can always drill into something. So if I wanted to open up this and see what's going on, I can drill all the way back to a particular invoice and see, why did health insurance double? I can drill back and see how something was set up back at the bill level. Okay, so let's take a step back now and talk about our dimensions. Now, dimensions, as I said, are tags, right? So let's go over and take a look at accounts payable and take a look at our bills here, and we'll open up a particular bill and we'll come down to the bottom here. Now, you can see that I have taken this particular invoice and split it out 4 different ways, but I've used the same GL account, right? I did not have to set up different benefits, health insurance accounts for different properties. Remember, these tags can be anything, right? Location, property, division, region, branch, whatever you like to call it. I'm actually in my hospitality demo here, so I have it labeled property. And I can force, as I said, which dimension I want my users to use. So if I don't want customer, project, memo, vendor, employee, if I don't want those turned on, they can be completely hidden and the user wouldn't even see them. If I require them, the user can't move forward without populating them. And don't forget, we can build rules in there. So that's where the dimensions come into play, and that's where my users are populating those dimensions for me. Okay, so we're now starting to get transactions in the system, whether they're AP invoices, whether they're GL journal entries, as I said, or bank type transactions, and all the time we're populating those dimensions. Now, where do dimensions come from and where do they end up, right? So that's where they come from. They get set up and keyed in at the transaction level. Now, here on my dashboard, again, back at my controller dashboard, I can use dimensions to filter my data. So if I wanted to look at just the Orlando Hilton, I can pick that dimension and apply that filter very quickly, and instantly my dashboard changes, and now I'm looking at a snapshot of just this one particular property or this department, or all of my Florida entities. Again, I can make different groupings, don't forget, so I can kind of I hate this term, but I can slice and dice the data any way that I need to or want to. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and talk about our reporting now. And we'll take a look at our dimensions here and our dimension groups and our dimension structures for a moment. So, here we might have a properties dimension. And again, if I wanted to, I could actually come over down here to terminology. And if I did not call this a property, you can see this is actually called location out of the box. I can click at it and name this anything I want to. I could leave it location. It can be branch, division, store, whatever you want it to be. Okay. So if I come back to our reports for a second and we go into our properties, I can create as many different dimensions as I want to. I can also tag them with different codes or different IDs to help me with reporting. I can create parents for them so I can nest them or link them accordingly. And then I can also create managers and set them up so I can do things like automatic reporting and automatic approvals of entries and timesheets and things like that. So we'll go through and work with clients to set up the different dimensions they want to, and then we'll populate them together and set them up. And then we'll come in and set up different groupings perhaps. So in the property grouping here, we might want, the properties all in the north region together, and we might want to look at the north versus the south, or we might want to, again, use a property group. Maybe we don't use a user-defined group, but we use a property group to say branch or brand, and we put all those Marriotts together and all of the Independents together and all the Hiltons together, something like that. So there's really no limitation to what you can do with this reporting tool, and that's why I said, in my opinion, it's a world-class reporting tool. So that's really the first step, or that first building block is we go in, we talk about dimensions. A lot of times we'll write them out on a whiteboard, see what fits, have discussions on it, look at existing reports, talk about where you'd like to be in the future, and then get those dimensions set up and turned on at the right transaction level. The next step is to come in and do some account groups. So if we go in and build, as I said, groupings of different reports here, and if we look at our account groups in the GL section here, you can see that I have tons and tons of them that I've built over time for different reports, for different calculations, because I can build in formulas in some of these. I can have these nested into a particular hierarchy so that they show correctly on reports. And I'm making it sound really more complicated than it is. So if we look at a particular group here, And I say, okay, I want an account group here called assets. And what do I want to put in that particular account group? And I can put other account groups, as I mentioned, or I can put in a single account if I want to, and just, you know, have a range of accounts. Assets is 1,000 to 1,999 or something like that. So you can come in and just very quickly set those up and build them, and then move them around or take things out if you don't want to. I'm going to show a little bit more about that when we go in and actually build our reports, but it's as simple as really coming in and setting those up. I can choose how I want that to display on a particular report, you know, so it has the right heading for me. And what does the total look like? So if I want this to show as assets and the total of all assets at the bottom of the report, I add that in and I create that. Now I can assign the filters to it here when I'm running this. You know, do I want to, you know, filter for vendor or project or item? So again, all those dimensions come into play here and are part of my account groups. Okay, so we build our dimensions. Of course, we set up our chart of accounts, right? Our new simplified modern chart of accounts with just our natural account. We set up our dimensions and we build our account groups. And that's all leading to us building financial reports. So if I come to our reporting section here, let's take a look at our financial reports. And we'll use an example that I had on the dashboard there, which was income statement by entity. And we'll go in and take a look at this. So this financial reporting tool, as is the custom reporting tool, is all wizard driven. So it's not like the old days where I have to be a crystal reports expert and know how to, you know, kind of build a rocket ship to write a report. I'm going to come in and kind of point and click what I want and be walked through the process using the wizard. So really, I can write reports, anyone can write reports. So it really is, I think, much more intuitive than some of the older reporting tools that I was trained on, you know, a few years ago, we'll say, but it's more like 20. So at the top here, we start with the wizard and we come down our tab. So what is this report going to be called? Do I want this report to be by account or by dimension? Okay. If it's set up by report and all saved, all of my accounts are going to be listed here. If I do dimensions, it's going to show my dimensions here. I like to have my dimensions in columns, so I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to continue through with my rows now. And here's where I select my account groups, right? So we said the account groups are the lines or the building blocks of my financial report. So let me just see what I have so far. So I'm going to click preview and launch a live report here. Anytime I can run this, see what it looks like. Okay, it's a pretty nice summarized P&L. Yep, I'm on the right track here. That's what I want. So let's go in to select my account groups here. And let's say, you know, I want to put in fixed assets here. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Let me go ahead and just add that, and let me preview that and see what it looks like. Say, ooh, no, that's actually not what I wanted. I didn't want assets in my P&L report here. Nice try though. I'll go ahead and fix that. So I'll go back to select account groups, and I'm going to put that in the trash here. So all of the account groups that you just saw on my account group screen, you know, show here. So if I did want, you know, maybe some statistics, so I can have those in my account groups for number of rooms available or square footage or number of sales transaction or employee head count, you know, all those types of things are also available in my account groups. Those can all be shown here as well. So I simply select the ones that I want, and then I can choose what level of detail I would like them to be. So I can go in and say, do I want to do detail and show every account in that particular grouping, or summarize, show one line for sales and hide everything and all that detail below it. So for each row, I can go ahead and select and set what level I want. Let me say, okay, and get my assets out of there so it looks nicer. There we go. Okay, and then once I'm happy with my rows, I can move on to my columns. And here I'm going to set up the columns that I want, and I can keep going on and adding anything I'd like. Well, in each column, I can set what should show here. Well, I want this one to be my kind of description column, so it's going to have the account name and the period name for the different headings. And so what do I want in column 2? Well, this is where I want to start to have some numbers. So I'd like to see maybe my actuals, or maybe I want to see you know, a computation, or I want to pull budget first. So we'll go ahead and put that in there, or a remaining forecast, or a percentage of budget, something like that. So, you know, everything's available for me, and I just select what I want. I can choose different column headings and override certain things if I want to. But what I do want to show here is that when I choose to expand by here, here's those dimensions again, right? So I can choose to expand this report very quickly by selecting one of my dimensions. And if I want that to be the properties or the departments or the employees, maybe I'm making a P&L by employee very quickly. And then, you know, how many levels down do I want to go, and do I want to have that roll up? So again, I'm just selecting everything, and I can always preview. So if I made a change and I wanted this to be by department instead, and I set that, and let me take a quick look here. I can see, okay, corporate admin, finance, human resources. No, that really wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to do that by department. So we'll go ahead and do that. We won't save that change, and we'll set that back to properties with one level down, because I truly want to do by location or by property. That's the P&L that I'm after. So again, I'm just selecting everything right from my drop-down list, and I can do that you know, as needed here. Once I'm quite happy with my columns, I can add computations if I'd like. So, you know, here's where we see, okay, let's do a percentage of sales, or percentage of total expenses, or let's bring in a statistic column of number of rooms and do a calculation in this report, or, you know, the head count, you know, so we can start to do some good analysis on our reports. And what I love is, you know, not only does it kind of give you really good examples, it walks you through how to actually do it. You know, those tips are right on the screen. That's not something I added. That's all baked right into the solution. I can set up filters. So how do I want this to be filtered when I do run this report? Do I want the user to be prompted for a date? Do I want to have only, you know, I want to have it locked down for certain departments in the locations that I have it for? Do I want to have, you know, how do I want to format this report, and how should pages look, and what should the columns do? And do I want rows and totals, you know, all over the place? Do I want decimals? How do I want this report to look? So again, I'm not going in building complex formulas. Everything is really a drop down or a selection. So we always like to say, if something is not the way you want it in Intacct, you probably missed a checkbox. That's really a kind of general rule of thumb. Okay. Once I'm happy and I keep previewing it, now I can say, okay, well, who gets this? Who do I want to see this report in? And I can default to kind of everyone, and then maybe just exclude certain users, or I can do it the other way and remove them. And what happens is when I remove that from the access list, everyone is automatically excluded, and then I can just add people to this that I want to. So I can very easily set this report up for people to use. So let's remove it there and put it back so we can actually run it. Okay, and then my next steps are, you know, do I want to add this report to my dashboard? Do I want to schedule this report to run automatically? Oh, by the way, I can just come in and say, yes, I would like this report to run automatically on a monthly schedule, starting on a certain date, ending on a certain date, with a a weekly schedule every 4 weeks or a monthly schedule every 3 months. So you can automatically go in and build this. I can choose to email the report out. I can store it in Intacct. I can store it in a cloud option if I want to, so I can have the report just kind of dumped out into a repository for me as well. So again, in just a couple minutes of time, we've built a really nice looking P&L that I can then schedule out and automatically deliver to all the right people without me having to touch the report again. So I can also take reports and copy them. I can copy a report and just make a tweak and change it. I can automatically set them to be, HTML pages that have links that I can drill down on. I can automatically set it up for a PDF export or an Excel export, again, and then schedule them to run when I'd like. There's all kinds of different sample reports that come out of the system that you can use as starting points. And then also we can help you build those, as we're going through and doing implementations and doing those trainings. And remember, all this is kind of working back to having this report show on something like a dashboard. If I want to, certainly not something you have to do, but that can show up here very, very easily because I've just selected one of my reports as one of the components on this particular dashboard. Okay, so that was financial reports. Now let's take a quick look at another type of report where I may want to run an operational report, something not really a P&L. I want to look at maybe a project and job costing report, or I might want to do some analysis on vendors, or I might want to look at invoices over $1,000 or something like that. So let's go ahead and run this just to take a look at the output, and we'll run it as an HTML report here. And I'll see this is going to give us a list of our customer invoices that are over $1,000. And then, of course, I can drill into them, which is pretty neat because this is an HTML report. Well, how did we get there, right? Let's go into Edit. And we'll go into the wizard. So just like the financial report, the operational reports have a wizard that walks me through what I'd like to do. And I can say, okay, what is my data source? Am I going to build this on invoice details, or am I going to run something on employee expenses, or on a list of customers, or general ledger entries, or cash receipts for the day, or vendor bills? So again, I don't have to know formulas, table names, anything like that. I simply select the information that I want to, and I can progress through the wizard to select all the fields that I want on my particular report. Which columns do I want? Well, I'd like the amount of the invoice to show up. I'd like the memo field to show up, maybe the date to show up so I could later filter it. So adding a field to my report is as easy as clicking the checkbox. Just, that comes back to what I said, jokingly before, but if something's not right, you've probably missed a checkbox in Intacct. So I simply go through my wizard, I set it up, and then again, my reports can be scheduled and managed or set up with security, just like we saw on the financial report section. So, okay, so let's go ahead then and jump back to our dashboards, and we'll open it up for some questions here. I know I saw a few come in, and we'll try to get those answered and make sure we cover everyone here. Okay, so a couple of questions. Can we set up a dollar amount threshold for setting approval limits for, say, for journal entries? So that question pertains to routing and approvals. So in Intacct, you can set up routing and approvals for things like journal entries, for paying invoices, for time and expense. You cannot set up dollar limit approvals for that, though. It's either all on or all off out of the box. There are some smart rules where you can set up kind of departments and help route things, but it is not currently dollar-based. Can the data be connected to Excel query? No, not out of the box, because you wouldn't be able to connect Excel to this, but all of the reports can be dumped into Excel. So I would say you'd rather start here and push into Excel rather than pull from Intacct directly into Excel. Another question, are you able to put in page breaks? So yes, you can go into the formatting of reports and go into add page breaks. Into the formatting, page setups. Default page settings, the landscape size, how are my margins, where's my column options and breaks, here you go. So I can break here and add those at certain sections for PDF versions only. And then another question, do any of our clients use the standard USALI financial format? Okay, that's a hospitality question, and yes, we can. We do have clients using that, and that's definitely something we can get sent out and get set up, or we can answer questions on that. Okay, any other questions? Just give it another minute or two, just see if anything else comes in. Okay, I guess there's no other questions at the moment, so we will go ahead and wrap that up there. But if there are any other questions down the road, feel free to give us a call at the office or email us. This is the email address for our account management team, am@acumenfl.com. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much for attending this morning or afternoon, depending on your location, and we look forward to seeing you again on another webinar Wednesday powered by Acumen. Have a good day. Bye.